Oh, damn, finally. Right, let's see if this is live. Right. Well, I was just about to cancel that because for some reason my internet was playing up again, even though I've changed it. It's BT now, but still. But alhamdulillah, it worked. After half an hour of trying. See, but people like me, we don't get an excuse because we're always late, so it doesn't matter. But that was this close to me just about to send a message to say, look guys, I can't do anything. I've been trying for 20 minutes. No joy. I'm just writing this here about just sharing it. When you got a new phone, and let me just share that. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. I take it that's done. God damn, I hope just no internet interruptions, inshallah. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada. Wa man bihudahum ihtada. Wa bi'athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa. Wa ba'd. Fasalamullahi ala al-qawm. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Bienvenidos a todos. Alright, Huan Ying Layth and Swagatam people, Swagatam. Right, so I'm sorry, I genuinely, like I said, look, people like me, we don't get an excuse because we're always late. But today I genuinely have been sitting here for about 25 minutes now. I've had to reset all my internet routers and the bloody Wi-Fi thing, my iPad, my phones, and then the BT router was just driving me mad. And I came upstairs now to say there's going to be no show, and just as I sat down, subhanallah, it started working. And then they say I deny miracles. This ain't no short of a miracle, huh? What is it? Dunyane. I tell you, I'm so hooked to this new tea I've bought, by the way. It's called Extra Strong Tetli. It's like comes in this red box. I'm just totally hooked to it. Dunyane tajriba or hawadis ki shakal mein. That in the form of trials and tribulations, जो कुछ मुझे दिया वो लौटा रहा हूँ मैं. Whatever it has handed to me, I'm only simply passing it along, people. Passing it along. So, the Red Bull and that is here. That has to be done. But I thought, let's have something warm as well. I'm on the end of getting out of this man flu. So people, ahlan wa sahlan. So what a week again. What's been going on, man? What's been going on, people? What's been going on? A lot of, a few things to discuss. I'll be taking some questions and answers. I'll be taking some questions as we're going along. I'll need you to click like, click share, share this live feed. Get it out there, people. Get it out there. I will be responding to the question on the legend physicist Stephen Hawking and his demise, the controversy that it kicked up in the Muslim world. Can we say, may Allah have mercy on him for non-Muslims? I'll be touching up on that. Also, I I know Sheikh Asrar has responded to with a video, so I'll be touching up on that as well, sharing my thoughts. But what else has been going on in this? Right, about blocked. So who's going to be... You know, hola, ¿qué tal, binum. Blocks you for us for talking the truth. You know, let's actually... Speaking of blocking, let's have a few words, people. Let's have a few words. You know, this is that time where you say, sit down. Siéntate. Sit down, huh? Kina. The thing is, look, let's have a few words on this block thing, yeah. The thing is, you see, here's the thing, people. I need you to focus. You know, this is my live. Yeah. So this is my live kind of session. So on this, in fact, I'm going to tell you what really made me think about all this blocking thing. Yeah. So I got a message from someone. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing his name, Safwan, and he kind of messaged me saying, look, can you unblock me? And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. No hay problema, no hay problema. And he said something to me when I unblocked him. I sent him a message. And he said to me, he said, you know, Mufti, you're the reason I'm still Muslim today. And I have to say, it kind of hit me that I didn't expect. I just thought somebody saying, you know, just, hey, unblock me. And so I unblocked him. And he said that. And I kind of felt, I'll be honest with you, I felt bad for having blocked him in the first place. I can't remember when I blocked him, maybe a while back. Or maybe some of the admin kind of blocked him. But, you see, in light of that, I want to say that, look, you have to understand something. I need you guys to understand this message. And whilst you're understanding it, feel free to share the live feed. Click share, get this out there. Some interesting topics for today. You see, you have to understand that when I'm engaging, let's say, the public, or I'm doing a live feed, or I've made certain posts, and sometimes my posts can be controversial. You see, it's difficult. I mean, it's. I suppose when I say difficult, I mean there is going to be a huge backlash to a lot of my stuff. Like right now, I'm doing this. I'm going to get a hell of a lot of. I'm going to get haters jump on board. I'm going to get all sorts of people, trolls. I'm going to get all kinds. Now you have to understand that. Look. When you troll me, it ruins this for everything, for everybody. It ruins the experience for other people. It interrupts the genuine flow that genuine people have. People want to ask genuine questions. You distract the topics, and also it's not easy, you know, responding to everybody. You can't. People just keep coming like lemmings. You know, it's like that old game, the lemmings, just non-stop. They just, what, you know, like, it's like one guy will come and he'll say something, and you'll say, look, the answer is, and then another one will come, but what's the delete in the Quran, Sunnah? And then you'll answer, and then another one will come, oh, haven't said the delete from the Quran and Sunnah. And then you'll say, look, listen, but I've said this. And then, but another one will come like a lemming, but you haven't said the delete from the Quran, Sunnah. And you think, look, for God's sake, Pakareo, you know, what's wrong with you? Estás loco, huh? What the hell's wrong with you? Look, I can't be answering everybody like this. And then people will say, like one guy will come along and say, oh, it's like this Stephen Hawking thing now. One guy will come along and say, oh, he made dua for a kafir. And then another one will come along and go, and I'll probably respond by saying, look, please re-examine your whole reading of the Quran. Another one will come along and say, he made dua for a kafir. And then another one will come by and say, even I knew that. I don't even know the Quran, and even I know that. And you think, well, I think the first part of your sentence was spot on. Even I don't know the Quran. We should just stop there. Because you don't know the Quran, mate. So off you go. So, you know, people go, and it's irritating, you know, seeing all of this. So I've told people like the admin as well that, look, I don't care. If people are trolling, block them. I don't care. And a lot of the times I'll just drop a gif, like one of those like wind people up even more, and people go like, oh. They go, oh, so you think you're funny, and then I'll just post one of those funny faces. And look, but that said, I want to say, look, if you want to troll me, here's a fair thing, yeah? If you want to troll me privately, yeah? Right, come to my private messages and troll the hell out of me. I don't care. Okay. How's that for a deal? Right, but don't, if you troll me on my public things where other people are trying to also have an experience, I will block you. Okay, so, and if you're going to get annoying, then you will be blocked. But if you want to annoy the hell out of me, or you want to attempt to annoy me, how about you just come to my private messages, spam the hell out of it, man. I don't care, you understand? See me in person and talk to me all you want. I don't care. I will happily, seriously, if I bump into people, I happily talk to them. So now the thing is, when you do it on a live experience, it interrupts everybody's experience. So that's my deal. If anybody has been blocked unnecessarily, then I will say, look, if you reach out to, I tell you what, if you reach out to Muhammad Shaban on Facebook, because obviously I can't say reach out to me because you're blocked. But if you do reach out to Muhammad Shaban, let him know the sitcho, right? And that's it. We'll inshallah unblock you, okay? How's that for a deal? But with the understanding that you cannot troll me on live things or on my public stuff. Personally, you can troll the hell out of me, okay? I don't care about that. Right, so that's something. So because I felt bad, I'll be honest with you. I think some people, you know, like after reading that message, I felt like bloody hell. You know, it touched me in, you know, it kind of, it was a short but very moving message. Okay, so that laugh is shocking. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, people, hell yeah. So what are we looking at? Shall we take 1-2 little questions before we get into some of the stuff? So got quite a few people. Click like, click share, get this out there, man. Get this out there. Mufti, was the Prophet unlettered, illiterate? That's an interesting question. You see, that's interesting because in my understanding, I'm kind of inclined towards what Abu Walid al-Baji, the legendary Maliki Don from Muslim Spain, he wrote a book. I mean, he's from about 1,000 years ago. In fact, can you guys see? I was going to show you. Can you guys? That's his commentary back there. Let me just tense that. You know, one of those like where you got to go. I just tense. Just use an excuse to go. Can you see that over there? That can you see, guys? Can you see like that over there? I can't point it out properly. Let me just take my top off. Right, that book over there, Al-Muntaqa, is that Muntaqa over there, which you can't read because it's backwards, right? But that's because the camera is reversed. Right now, that is his commentary on the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Now he has a book called Tahqiq al-Madhab fi anna an-nabiyya qad katab. that the tahqiq, the kind of the detailed analysis result of the madhab, he's trying to say, of having looked into this issue, is that the Messenger of Allah wrote. That was his tahqiq. I am inclined towards that understanding. It's very interesting. It's not a big book. I mean, I don't know. It's not that big. I mean, it's in print. He basically shows several hadith to demonstrate that the Prophet ﷺ could read and write, but it wasn't the general culture. So it would have been kind of like, because they never generally wrote. So it may have been, maybe not as, so for example, maybe not as, I don't know, fluently, or as people in the culture, because generally people weren't writing in that culture. So he kind of demonstrates that it wasn't the custom of the Prophet ﷺ, and many people around him, to write. Hence, he wasn't known generally as a writer, because that's not what he did. He didn't write, generally speaking, but if he had to, he could read things, he could make them out. It wasn't like, to him, these were like hieroglyphics, for example. Like, he did understand, but there wasn't that sense of, when you get a normal writer, the sense of fluency and the fluidity that writer would have, that wasn't with the Prophet and many people around him, because their culture was one of being unlettered, or it was an oral kind of culture and surrounding and tradition. But he could, and maybe if some of you are learning other languages, you can maybe relate to that. So, for example, I'm learning currently Hindi. Been learning Hindi for a little while now, in addition to Espanol. Espanol is obviously awesome. And for the Spanish, the TV series and movies are just too good. So the best way to pick it up. Right? So, but for Hindi, now, sometimes it's interesting, you see, because I've been a bit lazy, and I've been a bit, so because of that, like sometimes if I'm looking at letters, if I think of a letter, I can't think, like sometimes I'll think, well, how do you write, for example, G? Like, let's just say the kind of like GH, not just the G. But if I see it somewhere, I will recognize it. Like, if you just said some of the letters from the top of your head, like I might kind of be a bit confused, like, because I might think, But sometimes when I see it, I'll recognize it. Oh, that says Ghar, like home, like in Hindi. So I'll see it sometimes on the TV, on the dramas, on the things, like it'll be on, and I'll recognize, like I'll be able to read it when I see it. Now, I'm just trying to show you how you can relate to this. But if you asked me to just from the top of my head just write Hindi non-stop, I would probably struggle to write it, just like I'll write maybe certain words, but if I see them, I would be able to read them. And so that's the thing. And what some of the evidences that Abu Walid al-Baji presents him back there is, for example, the hadith of the vision when the Prophet ﷺ was taken on his night journey, and he says that when he saw paradise and when he saw hell, وَمَكْتُوبٌ عَلَى بَابِهَا, and written on its gates were these words, and things like this. He uses these hadith to show that how was the Prophet telling you what was written unless he could read it? Now, so no, but generally, Ummi is a title of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I think that Ummi is different to having an inability to read. I think Ummi is more like in a natural state, like from when he was with his mother, like from and it does mean unlettered, like people who don't kind of get so influenced by the environment around them. But generally speaking, it is unquestionable that the culture, the whole culture around the Prophet included, And many people around him, in the hundreds and maybe thousands, did not used to write. That was not their thing. Okay. So there's a difference. So for example, you could, just because like you can write, you are not a writer. Or just because you've said a poem, it doesn't make you a poet. You understand? So these are the kind of things that I don't think this is that controversial, to be honest with you. This isn't my tahqiq. This is something Abu Walid al-Baji said before. And I know some of the ulama disagreed with him. And some of them went to the extent to calling him a kafir. Some of the Malikiyah, like Abdul Hamid al-Sa'ir from North Africa. But Qadi Iyad discusses this in his Tartib al-Madarik, which is over there somewhere. But in his Tartib al-Madarik, he says they just misunderstood al-Baji. Al-Baji wasn't saying anything out of order. He was simply saying that the Prophet had this kind of ability to read, but it wasn't the culture. Like many people around, they could make out words, and it wasn't that these words to them were not like hieroglyphics. Like if I show you hieroglyphics, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing to you. But when you, even if you're not accustomed to be reading a lot in a certain language that you have familiarity with, those words, you can still make them out and recognize them. So that's what Abu Walid al-Baji was kind of going to in saying that the Prophet wasn't kind of like that he couldn't read. You know, like people, there's a hadith of Hudaybiyah when they write out the thing and it says, then he wrote and he crossed out. Abu Walid al-Baji says that he is talking about the Prophet. And all the scholars start saying, oh my God, who is the he talking about? Because the Prophet couldn't read or write, so it must be talking about Ali radiallahu anh. But the truth is, Abu Walid al-Baji says, look, crossing out 1-2 words and reading, these kind of things, the Prophet could do that. So that's something. So I hope that's of some help. That's not to strike up a controversy. But it's to show that, look, and that in itself is from the amazing character and qualities of the Prophet of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I like that question, Sam Ali, that are languages innate or are they innate or are they kind of learned through society? Is it nature versus nurture? I really find that fascinating. I mean, apart from me having an inclination to with psychology with me is just, I love psychology totally. And you know, ever since I've been young, I've loved to kind of, I've had a fascination with the mind and brain and, you know, to get into people's mind. I don't know, these things just come naturally to me. Psychology was just awesome. And Noam Chomsky, yes, he does present the what they term LAD, a language acquisition device, where he says the brain is hardwired for language. I do fall in line with that way of thinking. I feel that the language, that the brain, human brain, has some kind of wiring, if you like, that is empty. It has a base, a very universal base kind of grammar to it, that can be manipulated in so many ways, and it's very raw. It's very raw and very base. But languages just fit onto it so well. And I think like animals don't have that. Human beings have that innately. And hence you see studies on feral children, children who are left in the wild, on children who are deaf, dumb and blind. And from the outstanding legends of the last century, Helen Keller, who was deaf, dumb and blind, and an inspiration to the world, really, Helen Keller was. So things like that, like how do they acquire language? Because think about it, if you're deaf, dumb and blind, but then when they write, like if you read Helen Keller's books or even some of her words, she will write perfectly. In fact, much better than most people. Now, one is understanding, you see, very pigeon speak, like me, you know, like Tarzan, you know, that kind of speak, broken speak, pigeon speak, like go, sharp, you, what? But they don't speak like that. They speak with prepositions. They speak completely, perfectly. So the question is, how does that work? And I think that's a fascinating study. And I am inclined towards that human beings have a moral base. This kind of... And I find that awesomely represented in the Quran when Allah says, Ar-Rahman khalaq al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. You see, He created man and taught him expression. Allah. Like that is, to me, just a wonderful kind of verse. Not allamahul kalam. He taught him speech. You see, a parrot can just speak. But like animals also some animals communicate, certain monkeys communicate with certain screams that represent kind of words. They have cries for example, lion, or they'll have certain kind of a bird. They'll have certain kind of cries, which they've done tests, psychologists have done tests when they play that one. So for example, for the bird, if they play that scream, the monkey will kind of duck. Or if they play the scream for lion, the monkey will jump up on the tree. And they've also seen monkeys trick other monkeys with that. So a monkey will kind of have all these bananas, and another monkey will come and he'll do the scream like, ah! Like, lion, lion, lion. We're going to come to lion in a moment. Lion, Rastafari. So lion, they'll say something like lion, and the other monkey will jump up on the tree, and this monkey will just go and steal his bananas. So monkeys do things like that, and other animals do communicate. But Allah doesn't say allamahul kalam. He says allamahul bayan. He taught man expression. See, we can express ourselves with such power and capabilities that when I say something, my words can trigger the same emotion in the receptive hearts and minds of those listening to my words. That is amazing, amazing. So, yeah, so I am inclined to, and I'll say something else as well about this, about the language base. I feel that morality works in the same way. I feel that the Fitra is a kind of moral, a raw, rudimentary moral base that we have. It's very raw, like language, and it can be adapted to your times. But we have some very raw base of like, we're uncomfortable with harm. For example, it's very basic. It's like we see harm and there's empathy. Like we don't like seeing harm. We don't like seeing... I mean, these things can be channeled, but we have that sense of empathy tying in with this. We recognize harm. We recognize it's good to avert harm, to avoid harm. And then based on this, things start to build and we have a whole complex morality. So that's some of that. Somebody asked people, if you can click share, click like. I need you to get this out there before we... al-fujuraha wa taqwaha. You know, Allah inspired this kind of consciousness that we have. This kind of... I feel that in some ways the ruh is similar to the kind of consciousness that we have. That can be argued, I understand that. People could argue that, well, if somebody's comatose, would they still not have that ruh then, that consciousness? Obviously they would, but they don't have access to it. But I kind of feel these things, you know, the intellect, the consciousness, these things are all interlocked. And this is maybe parts of what this ruh, whatever that means, is. This is in my understanding. I could be wrong. Nobody really knows too much what is meant by the ruh. In the Quran, Allah says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You know, you were not given from its knowledge except a little. But I do kind of, I kind of incline towards this kind of sense of collective consciousness that people in a certain given time, that these, if this is kind of part of the ruh, that we are connected in certain ways, that people feel sometimes like you can remember somebody so much and they can feel it in some ways. Only usually when you're close with certain people. And there's some interesting studies done on stuff like this. And it's difficult because it's not always replicated. But it's at the same time beats probability. It happens so much that, you know, it's interesting. And I feel like the hadith of al-arwah junudum mujannada, that these arwah are something that is all kind of bound in together with each other in some way. And the Prophet said, "Ma tanakara minha ikhtalafat," and what, you know, it's antagonistic. They will just repel each other. But what ma ta'arafa minha i'talafat, and what kind of has this harmonizing with each other that they will kind of sync. And I just find this I find this very interesting. I know Carl Jung kind of had this understanding of a collective consciousness. It's interesting. I find it interesting. I'm not saying this is it, that this is, but I do feel that there is something in an era that all people, maybe at a very subconscious level, tap into. Because it's interesting how discoveries always happen around the same time. How the mood of an age seems to just change. How things... So I kind of think that I feel there's some validity to things like that. But Allahu A'lam. Right, so people, you see, the souls, I don't know what the souls in that sense, you know what I don't buy into? I don't buy into this kind of like the soul is like you, a ghost kind of figure looking. Like, so my soul is like me, a ghost version of me. Just floats around, comes back. I don't buy too much into that personally. I know many people do, Christians do, some Muslims do as well, other people do as well, some Hindus in their version of the Atma. I don't know, it just doesn't resonate too well with me. That I think I'm more kind of inclined to, there is something, this consciousness that is kind of makes us, but I don't know. Honestly, I wish I did know these things. These are some of the mysteries of the universe. But yeah, the id and the, yes, of course, the you know, all of that, obeyed, the super id and all of that by Freud. Right. And I do find it interesting. I definitely find the fact that sometimes you can be so bound like close with someone that you could go away and you could be thinking about them, or even later, much later, you think about them and they kind of react. And I just feel that's interesting, you know, that's really fascinating, that how people, and I've read somewhere once about, is it possible that, because the brain works electronically, we know this, so I read somewhere in some kind of scientific theory that is it possible that with the neural electrical activity in the brain, if somebody was to be close with somebody, especially through eye contact, could it be that, for example, this may sound bizarre to some people, but could it be that if there were kind of like biophotons, photons are massless kind of things which you can't see, they created out of nothing, they just kind of are emitted usually by electric things and other subatomic particles, that they become entangled. Because what we do know in quantum physics now is if you entangle subatomic particles and move one, the other automatically moves, no matter what the distance. Could it be that this this resonates on this kind of consciousness level, that people have some kind of remote, weak connection? Could it be? It's open to study. It's open to study. Right, so people, let's move on. There was a question there. Ijaz Ahmed about the splitting of the moon. I have answered that in previous episodes. Please do watch that. I've highlighted that it didn't mean that the moon actually split. It just meant that it perceptibly to the people there. And Ibn Ashur explains how most likely it was a lunar eclipse or something like this. And I've gone into much detail in previous episodes, so you can watch that. And hence he brings a hadith mentioning Ibn Abbas saying it was an eclipse. And he goes into much more discussion. I've discussed it previously. But it's so the moon splitting was not, I mean, it may have been perceived like that to people, but it didn't actually split. Okay. Now, and we don't need to think, you know, we've got to understand something. The prophets didn't come to be superhumans and do superhuman miracles. I think we've kind of messed up our understanding of, we've got this mythological version of religion where all of a sudden religion needs to be about superpowers and superhumans and demons and all these kind of mystic, this kind of mythological characters and all these things for it to resonate with us. Like if it's just real human people, then it's too boring, all of us. Either boring or we can't this is the irony. We then feel we can't relate. And the amazing thing is, Allah says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, that you have a perfect example in the Prophet. How could we have a perfect example if he was superhuman? It wouldn't make it. Allah is telling us, look, you can relate to him. Allah says, and we would not. You know, what did the kuffar of Quraysh say? They said, send down somebody from the sky, send down, you know, a book, or send down an angel, or send down this. Allah ridicules them, says, are they crazy? We don't do things like that. You know, we don't do things like that. You are a human. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ, except that Allah has revealed unto me. So, you know, I'm a human just like you. Like I don't do these kind of like these kind of superhuman things that you want. Because they were saying, look, why don't you do this? Why don't you just make a garden appear here and we'll believe? So the point is, if Allah was going to do these things later on anyway, like let's say Allah did decide, hey, I'm going to send down Jesus from the sky, then you might as well just send him and get it over and done with at that point, and everybody would just believe. Because that's all they asked for. You know, like they say, hey, would you do this? No point telling them off and then saying like, are you crazy? We don't do things like this. And then later on doing it anyway. Like that's like a massive contradiction. Like, what do you mean you don't do things like this? Well, you're doing them anyway. So, exactly. So, and then there's no test. What is the purpose of faith? Then it's just like saying, well, you know, it's okay. There's empirical data. Hey, you know, here comes... You know, Allah says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا. If Allah wanted, everybody would have believed. But He didn't want to do that. So, right, so, Ijtihad, do I believe Ijtihad can be practiced by modern day scholars? Of course it can. Who dares to lock the doors of Ijtihad? We'll kick those doors right in. These people, huh? Put all the locks you want on it. You know what it is? These people are just haters. Nah, it's just their small narrow minds that, oh, nobody is incapable of new thought. See, this is what holds religion back. Because the attitude of religionists, this kind of dogmatists to people, is that, oh, in the world, this is the attitude, that anything new that you guys have ever uncovered only falls into two categories. One, you know, God never mentioned it, so therefore it can't be true. This is rule number one. Two, once it's proven to be true, well, okay, even if it's true, but God never mentioned it, so it's not really important. You see, this is not how Allah wanted you to become. He never wanted you to become dogmatist. Look what Allah says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ. Do not be like those who received the scriptures before you. فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ. That so much time passed over them, they became old with these books, that فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Their hearts became stern. Do not be like them. Always keep a fresh outlook. Allah is telling you this in the Quran. Do not be like those people. They had the book and they had it for a long time. فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدِ. They had it for a long time and they had this book and they clinged onto it. فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Then their hearts became all narrow-minded and they became more. Do not be like them. Allah is telling you. So this is this is the thing. Right, yep, there is a hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal regarding Ijtihad, and some people have tried to problematize the sanad. Whether or not the sanad has problems with it, but the understanding is sound. Okay. So somebody asked a question there, who was the kind of sacrificed, or not sacrificed, but to be the son of Abraham that was to be put forward. Not who was sacrificed, but you know, the son, the kind of chosen son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Was it Ismail? Was it Ishaq? Was it, you know, Ishmael or Isaac? Right, the thing is, look, really, we have nothing in the clear Quran that indicates either. There's some kind of indication, like many Muslims infer, they kind of like infer this to be Ismail. Okay. The Jewish tradition says it was Ishaq. Many Muslims, believe it or not, felt it was Ishaq. People don't know this. See, this is another kind of thing to show cognitive dissonance. Did you know Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh believed it was Ishaq? The legend of Medina, Imam Malik actually believed it was Ishaq. So I think these kind of things sometimes we don't need to really get so bogged down with. I think the point is that, look, my principle of looking at things is like this. I want to share this with you. Is that if there is nothing conclusive in the Quran, and there is nothing clearly, unquestionably established by the Sunnah, there are some hadith, but they can be interpreted, or they can go this way, that way. If there's nothing like that, then I think, look, just leave it. It doesn't really make a big deal. You can have an opinion either ways. That opinion is simply an opinion. You can keep it, but it doesn't really mean that was the reality, because Allah obviously didn't clarify. There's nothing about it. And a good example here is like somebody asked about Jesus speaking in the cradle. Now, first of all, I tell you what, I'll come to that when I respond to Asrar's point. What's a DNR? Well, I don't know. Like, do not resuscitate. Is that what it is? Okay, this question, people, if you can share the feed, get it out there. Come on, share this feed, people. Be tested in your faith. Oh. God damn. Somebody said, why does this guy swear so much on his thing? I'm like, you need to see me in my everyday life. You think this is swearing? No. And somebody responded quite well by saying, because he's British. Thank you, shukran, whoever that was. And it's true, things like words like damn in the British understanding of English are not a swear. Okay, so it's all good, people. It's all good. So I hope that makes some sense. Right, shall we take 1 or 2 other questions before moving on to this issue? What are some other questions, people? Those of you just just logging in live now, if you just click share, get this out there. Let other people share some of this khair, huh? What say you? Can you donate your organs after death? That's a good question. You see, can you donate your organs? Yes, you can. You need to understand something here. Donating organs is not haram, contrary to what you may have been taught. We have to remember that, look, in the UK, our Islam, our version of Islam, is influenced massively by 2 things, by two places, regions in the world. Pakistan, Indo-Pak, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, but heavily like the Pakistani culture, and Saudi Arabia. Both of these places they probably influence 90% of the Islam we have in the UK, and maybe in America a huge amount, maybe not 90%, but a massive amount there as well. So we have to understand that these countries, whatever they say, we think that's Islam. But there are so many other countries, 40 plus more countries in the world that are Muslim. Indonesia, Malaysia, Egypt, Tunis, Morocco, Jordan, Palestine, all these places, Turkey, all these places in the world have Muslims. Even other countries have Muslims. China has a huge population of Muslims. We restrict our understanding of Islam. Just India has a huge population of... India is sometimes very similar to Pakistan, sometimes a bit different. But my point is that the views here are massively influenced. So when people say we can't donate organs, that's not true. We can. The hadith they try to use is completely misrepresented. Okay, the hadith they are using is a saying of the Prophet that that there's sanctity of insan maytan ka hurmatihi hayyan, that the hurma of an insan, of an individual, al-mar', once he's dead, is that the sanctity is the same as whilst he was alive. Now this hadith is speaking about muthla. Okay, you have to understand muthla. Now, muthla, people, it's basically, have you watched movies like Hostel? Right, not to sidetrack, or the whole Saw genre, right, Jigsaw, let's play a game. So this mindset, right, people had, I'm just trying to give you a twisted mindset. People in the past had this kind of a mindset, especially to do with battles. Okay, so when battles took place, or raids, or when they attacked an enemy tribe, these kind of Muslim version of like these kind of Viking figures. And the reason I relate people to Vikings is because that image comes clearly in your mind. And Muslims in their very early Arabia and pre-Islam and even into Islam had that culture. They used to live off raiding each other and things like this. Now, this culture, when they attacked other tribes or they had rivalry and they beat their opponents, they would maim them and they would really go hostile and Jigsaw on them. They really would. Like, they would cut out weird parts of their bodies. They would cut out, like the famous hadith of Hind cutting out Hamza's liver and biting it. This kind of culture existed. They would do things like cut off ears, and a bit like what you saw in the Vietnam War, people making kind of necklaces out of Vietnamese ears and things like that. These people lived that kind of culture. They would do things like cut off limbs, hang it in the dead person's body, like around his neck, like maybe cut off his hand, hang it here, cut off his head, stick it on a spike. They would cut out parts of his body, pull out his heart. They would do these kind of horrific things. So the Prophet taught them that is haram. It is forbidden. And the sanctity of a human whilst he's dead is the sanctity of a human whilst he's alive. This is what the Prophet of God was teaching. He was not talking about organ donations. Right? You see, this is so naive that you take the Prophet and you place him in an anti-progressive kind of position, like that the Prophet is against humanity progressing. How irresponsible can you become? In the Prophet's time, organ transplants like this didn't happen. More primitive versions did happen. Okay, it's like the prototypes. So for example, having a fake nose. So there was a companion in the lifetime of the Prophet whose nose got cut off in a battle, and he took a nose made out of gold. He stuck it on. The Prophet never said anything to him, like, hey, what the hell does that nose serve as a function? It's, why are you wearing gold? Or why have you even got a nose? It's not like you can smell with it. It's not like these kind of things. No. Or why are you wearing that nose? Just so you're changing the creation of God? Or is it just so you can compete with other human beings? This isn't how the Prophet treated him. The Prophet never said anything to him. He kept a golden nose. Like the Prophet, this is a known incident. And there were other examples as well, where people did these things. These were very early prototype versions of what will come in our time as actual organ transplants. Obviously, humanity still had a long way to go before it could discover all these things. And that's all good. Allah says in the Quran, do you not see كيف بدأ الله الخلق? How Allah began creation? سيروا في الأرض فانظروا. Go walk and look and search and discover. So this point of organs, now later on after the Prophet, within a few centuries, Muslims, like within even 2 centuries, Muslims started to do certain prototype surgeries. Like they would get animal bones and sometimes mend them. They would do things like let's say a person needed something, they would use sometimes some animal bones and wrap it up and see if that could heal. Some of the early scholars speak about this. Sometimes if a person lost, like let's say a person, like for tooth, like let's say your tooth had fallen out or your teeth were broken, sometimes they used artificial things, gold. Other times they like just got your teeth and just held them there, and sometimes it kind of just sealed itself back in. And there's a whole discussion where the scholars see no problem with this kind of stuff. And Imam Shafi'i, although did have a problem with stuff like this, considering it, he considered it to be dead and felt that you have to break it back out, which I think makes no sense. But and then we come to our time when this is actually viable now. You see, people who are gifting their organs, this falls under the verse of the Quran, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا, and who brought a soul to life, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, then he has brought the entire mankind to life. This is the kind of verse that relates to stuff like this. Now, I speak often about the Shaykh al-Islam of the last century and the Grand Mufti of the Malikiyya, Ibn Ashur. His successor and junior to him, and a student of his, but also a very senior scholar who was in his time deemed the Grand Mufti of the Malikiyya, is Shaykh Muhammad al-Aziz Ju'ayyat. Now, I do have his fatwa around here somewhere, and I've quoted them in the past. But Sheikh Ju'ayyat, he in the 60s speaks about this issue of organ donation. Tabarru', they call it kind of tabarru' al-a'da', that kind of giving your limbs and things like this, especially if a person is dead, and he issues the fatwa, it's absolutely fine. Many of the ulama of al-Azhar have issued the fatwa, it's absolutely fine. They've said it does not violate any understanding of Islam. It does not go against the Quran. It does not go against any established sunnah. It does not uproot a principle. And if anything, those hadith are talking about something else. And it actually corroborates the verse of the Quran about whoever gives life. And I think it's one of the greatest acts of charity that a human being can ever do. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's actually very scary. It's a scary thought. Even if I were to think about it, I'd kind of be a bit scared, if I'm going to be honest, even though I know that I'm dead, which is weird, but I'd still, the thought of somebody kind of like taking my eyes out, taking my liver out, pulling my heart out, the thought of these things are really freaky. And if I'm going to be honest, I think it's that fear that really makes people say it's haram. Nothing else, in my understanding. Or maybe some ignorant kind of interpretations. And so this is why I would just be, I'll be honest with you, I'd be kind of frightened and freaked out about doing this. If anything, it's just the fear, even though it's technically an irrational fear, but it's an instinctual fear. It doesn't make sense because you're dead anyway, and your body parts will just, I mean, in a post-mortem, they'll kind of cut up your pieces anyway. And then they'll just kind of chuck them back in and just sew it up. But, right, so the point is, you wouldn't feel it if you're dead. No, I mean, if you're asking, does the dead person feel this from an Islamic perspective? No, because whatever's in this world stays in this world, right? It's like, it's got the Vegas rule to it. Whatever's from this world just stays in this world, right? So the dead person doesn't feel it at all. But I mean the fear that you have now, even though you know your body will be dead, but you're still kind of freaked out by it. So that's all it is. And I think people who are so adamant on this rule, really, I think they ought to, if they really believe in this and they're prepared to preach it, then they ought to sign a clause that they will never accept a donor from anybody else. You know, you can't be, and they will never encourage anybody of theirs to take a donor. You know, if their parent was dying and they could receive a donor of a kidney or a liver to save their life, or their heart, or their child, then they shouldn't encourage that person. You know, if you're going to preach to people to not give, then you can't preach to take. That's wrong. I think that's double standards, and it shows the religion as a hypocrisy. So that's what I'm going to say, that if you have your interpretation, which is a wrong understanding of a hadith, but if you want to push that and you want to say this is in the name of God, then you should stand true to your principle and never allow anybody to, as far as advice is concerned, to take either. Not be the first one, you know, because these people, a lot of these, I don't mean to diss them, but, you know, these pot-belly kind of people, and you know, illnesses can befall anybody, can afflict, you know, they can afflict anybody, but a lot of them will sometimes, they'll have issues, and they'll be straight on the list. Oh yeah, can I get a kidney transplant? Can I get this? Can I get that? Can I get a blood transfusion? Can I get this? Can I give these? No. Haram. Kuffar. Can I take a kafir's liver? Hell yeah. Nah. This stuff is, it embarrasses the deen, and it betrays Allah and His Messenger in portraying the true image of Islam. So, people, let's move on. Right, so I'm going to discuss as well about, I was going to say Richard Stephen Hawking's and the whole thing, but before I get to that, right, somebody had asked about DNR, Do Not Resuscitate. People, if you've just tuned in, if you click like, if you click share, can you share this, get this out there, people? Come on, get it out there, I want you to burn the haters. The hate. About DNR, people, Do Not Resuscitate. It is permissible to select DNR, in my understanding, if a person wanted to. They can, you see, this falls under the ruling, is it an obligation in Islam to medicate, to take medication? It's not an obligation in Islam. You don't have to seek medication, but you should. Like, as in, it's the human thing to do. Now, even the Prophet encouraged that people do seek medication, but if you didn't, it's not like you're sinful or you're going to hell or you're doomed. You know, it's a foolish choice, I think, that you have such an amana from Allah, good health, and you don't seek. That said, DNR is something totally different. DNR is usually when people are in a very debilitated state. Do not resuscitate. Now, if a person is in that state of mind, like let's say they, you know, the quality of life is not there at all. And I don't mean by quality the luxuries, like, hey, am I chilling in my penthouse? I don't mean like that kind of quality of life, but actual, like you're suffering non-stop, you've got nothing but pain, like let's say your key vital organs are failing, you know, like things like your heart is playing up, your liver, kidney, all these things are playing up, your lungs. Now, in that situation, let's say you were to go down, and the doctors ask you that if you did go down, would you want us to resuscitate you? And they wouldn't, I don't think they would say this to young people, but especially people who are of some age. So people who are senior in age, they usually ask them, would you want us to resuscitate you? Or they would ask a loved one, would you want us to resuscitate, let's say, your parent or your grandparent? Now, this is a difficult question when it's asked to loved ones. When it's asked to the person themselves, they can just say, in Islam, if they don't want, they can say no. I do understand that to be permissible, that is not haram, because if you're only being kept alive on borrowed time, so to speak, then it's only inevitable. And it's not like you are killing yourself, but if your organs failed on you, you do not need to kind of borrow time and just endure suffering if you do not want to. Okay? So, a person can select DNR, do not resuscitate. When they asked a loved one, I think it kind of makes it very difficult, because, you see, the loved one will, or the near and dear to them, will have now an immense sense of guilt. Because they would feel that, you know, if I said no, and then people will be like, you selfish beep, you know, just because you didn't want to take care of so-and-so, you said DNR. And that is such a cruel thing to say, because that's not true. I mean, there may be some people like that, but I think it's not right to ever have a judgmental attitude towards people. Look, sometimes people themselves do not want to be burdening other people. They do not want to be like that. They don't want to. You know, I watched this TV series. It was an amazing, I was shocked actually how moving it was. It was called This Is Us. And in there, there's a scene with this kind of father who's now terminally ill. And it's a point where he's dying. And he's on this kind of hospital bed, and the son says to him, they've kind of reconnected after never having this bond, and they develop in this short time a very powerful bond. And the son kind of says to him that, oh my God, you know, like he didn't know that this was going to happen, and like not that day. And he says, let me get my kind of your grandkids and my children, let me call them and let me do this and let me do that. And he says something which was incredibly powerful. He says, I said my goodbyes to them. He says that I don't want their last memory of me to be one where they're looking down on me. Like, I want their last memory to be where they're looking up at me. And I just thought that was such a powerful kind of emotion and statement, really. And I think people in this world, when their quality of life is massively compromised, they don't like being a burden on other people. And hence, if you're just keeping them alive as a selfish decision to kind of just, you know, just because you don't want them dead yet, then I think that is also that's also a very selfish thing to do. I just feel that that's not right either. I'm just saying, I'm not saying you need to go either ways. I'm saying it's permissible. But I don't think you should be laden with guilt, okay, about do not resuscitate. I don't think if you selected that I don't want, let's say, my grandparent or parent to be resuscitated, that you need to kind of like succumb to all this guilt. I don't believe you need to. You know, provided it's not a selfish decision. Okay, so I hope that's of some help. Right, people. Well, Sheikh Asrar's video. Okay, a quick question before we come to Sheikh Asrar's video. Guys, if you can click like, click share. Let's get this out there. Hello, can you guys see me? People, is this... Let me see, I think... Can you see me? Okay. Because I think it kind of broke down a bit there. Yep, I think it broke down. Okay, so I think we're back. I think that was the internet connection. Guys, is that okay? Can you all... can you guys see me okay? Muhammad Mufti Wasim Ji, ahlan wa sahlan, people. Mufti Wasim is in the house, a great, awesome scholar from, I believe, Chicago, US. Young Mufti. Do reach out to him if you have any questions. Can you guys see anything now? Is it okay? I'm having messages from people saying they can't see anything. They can't see the stream. If some people can just send a confirmation message that it's okay, that will just help. It cut out, but is it okay now? Khalil just said it cut out. I'm not... It's okay now. Shukran. Guys, if you click share this, get it out there. I think it just went low and everybody just cut off for a moment. But alhamdulillah, it's back. It's malfunctioning. Malware. So, yeah. Yeah, so this Jummah Mubarak thing, I think just go easy on it, folks. Be wary. Don't kind of like just bore the hell out of people. People do get frustrated with it, but it isn't haram to do. I do find it a bit annoying. You know, sometimes you get all these Islamic reminders, and I'll be honest with you, I find them annoying. I'm just being honest. Look, like, is honesty haram? You know, there used to be this guy who used to send me hadith every day. Like, just a hadith. Every day something. And then I said to him, bro, please stop sending me this stuff, man. I said, like, I don't want to be rude because, look, I don't want to be disrespectful to the hadith. So, please don't send this stuff to me, man. Like, if I want to see it, I'll find it. You know, it's like just sending somebody, forcing the Quran or forcing hadith on somebody. And then what's going to happen is somebody's going to say something like, they're going to receive a hadith from the Prophet. And they're going to say, oh, for God's sake, and they're going to say something horrible. And look what you're making them do. You're making them, you're making them do that. So just people be wary. You know, you don't need to be reaffirm your Islamicness to you. Right, so people, right, so those of you just tuned in, I need you to share this because I'm going to be discussing now Sheikh Asrar's video refutation or response. It had a bit of a refutation in there, but that was his refutation video. I need you to get this out there. Let's see what this is about, people. So, those of you that know the backdrop of what's been going on, Sheikh Asrar had put up a challenge to me since last year, December last year, saying I wouldn't dare to kind of sit in front of him and discuss this issue on the second coming of Jesus being what I believe to be inaccurate and not established. So I think contrary to his expectation, I immediately took him up for it. He massively underestimated me. So I was straight on it, saying, look, why don't we meet straight away? I'm about to go on a Christmas holiday. I need you to, why don't we meet? Anyway, it took us 3 months of negotiating and chasing him up for him to actually eventually come and meet. Okay, now, I'll be honest with you, I sincerely doubted that he wanted to meet and wanted to have a dialogue. I doubted this, but when he did come, it became a disaster, and I've got my reflections video on that. You can watch it, and do watch it, please. It's my reflection on how the pre-debate discussion went. And I was kind of, in hindsight, at the whole thing, I was disappointed. And I was disappointed with him as well, I'll be honest. But I was disappointed at the whole thing. And I acknowledge my mistakes in there too. I'm no perfect person, far from it. And I kind of said in hindsight, in the second hour, it's about 2 hours long, I kind of raised my voice and I kind of did these things as well. And it happens, you know, you're a human being, you know, you get frustrated sometimes. So I said, look, I tell you what, I advised Sheikh Asrar, look, why don't you, because at the end of the discussion, Sheikh Asrar said, and this is, and he knows he said this, he did say this, we've got, I mean, it was recorded by him and by us, where he says that, look, Muslims, we're incapable of having dialogue with each other. Only atheists can do things like that, like professors and stuff like that. Us Muslims, you know, we can't do dialogues like that. We got to do the Indo-Pak, the kind of Brelvi Deobandi style. Although that last, this ain't his words, but he did say, the first part is his words, that we Muslims can't do stuff like this. Only atheists can do stuff like that. And he also, you know, and I was kind of like very shocked by his on-screen, off-screen behavior, where off-screen he was like really friendly and mellow and sitting back and really polite, and on-screen, as soon as he went live, he became this like kind of, and like, I need you to apologize and I need you to do this. And when we asked him, and once again, he's got this on recording as well, when we asked him afterwards, Sheikh, how come you like this? What happened? I mean, what the hell? And his words, once again, I know he has this obsession with quoting him verbatimly, but he can just check his own recording. But he just said, look, at the end of the day, we're Mulvis, and Mulvis do drama, right? So this is the kind of what he said, that, you know, this is what Mulvis do on screen. Now, so in my reflections, I said, look, listen, let's cut the drama out, right? I tell you what, you, Quran, Sunnah, reason you've agreed to, give me your best shot. Make a video, show me the best evidences you've got, and fine, I will respond in a video. How does that sound? Now that cuts out the drama. It cuts out you having to do the Mulvi theatre and stuff like this. It cuts out you having to put on an act. And it also cuts out a lot of the hate and playing to the crowd kind of stuff. Now, in what followed after that, we had some text messages exchanged in which I sent him some messages saying, Sheikh, can you cover these questions? Is the coming of Jesus rational or textual? Did the Quran engage this, or did it kind of sideline this issue as it did with the Dajjal and the Mahdi? Why is Jesus coming? Why is he coming? What is the purpose of Jesus coming, and why Jesus? So I put these 4 questions to him, and I said to him, will you also please quote the asanid of these hadith, the chains of these hadith, otherwise it's pointless. He responded to me in text by saying, you know, you should have discussed all of this with me before. However, I will be responding to all of your questions. He said this in his text message to me. I said, fine, thanks, Sheikh, much appreciated. At the same time, he was asking me, I did say this, I don't know why he was doing this, because on one hand, he was asking me, I need to go, you know, hey, why don't you come down, hang out with me and stuff like this. On the other hand, he was making a post, there's a satanic scholar going around giving all these rulings, which was really just confusing me, that I don't... Kya drama hai, yaar? You know, what's going on here? Like... You know, you're acting all pally with me. Then you're making all these statements of, you know, you're kind of like this satanic person. Anyway, so he put a date. Now, to help him, last week I gave a prelude, a kind of backdrop to my thinking. I've raised a lot of questions about why do I problematize the coming of Jesus. Is it simply that I have an issue with the hadith? It's not. It's the fact that it has a huge problem with the overall understanding of the Quran, with the established Sunnah and the principles in Islam. I showed that when we look at, and please do watch my kind of prelude to this debate. It is, I think it is, I'll get a thumbnail made for it, but it is it's last week's number 69, I think. So now the thing is, in there I highlight this whole narrative is problematic because it clashes with many Islamic principles. It clashes with the teaching of the Quran. Jesus, when he's going to... I told last week, I mentioned, look, the devil is in the detail. Let's look at the detail of these hadith. They reflect exactly what the Gospels say, that Jesus will come to judge over mankind. He will judge Jew and Gentile, that all animals will become vegetarians, that all evil will rise from earth, that Jesus will force people to become Muslim. He will give them only two choices. You face the sword, or you face death, or you face Islam. All of these things went against the whole teaching of Islam. You know, all this kind of like all animals becoming vegetarian. By the way, which is one of the verses from the Gospels, from the Bible, about how the wolves will graze with the sheep and so on when Jesus comes. Now, I said, look, and I mentioned that people say, how could this creep into Islam? And I said that much greater has happened within Islam. Like, look at within decades of the lifetime of the Prophet, the head of state, like Uthman, is not only assassinated in his home, the city of the Prophet is held under siege for days on end. The body of the Caliph is left on the street. Somebody could ask, how could this happen? But it happened. I mentioned the huge splits that happened afterward. I mentioned how many people entered Islam. Surely there were many people who hated Islam. And there were many people who were sincere but carried baggage into Islam. Many of them Christian. The whole of Sham was under the Roman Empire. They embraced Islam. The church was transformed into the Umayyad mosque of Bani Umayyah. It is on that mosque minaret then that many believe Jesus will descend. Which once again, all of a sudden, there's no mention of Damascus. There's no connection with Damascus in the Prophet's lifetime. No sooner do the Muslim within decades move their capital to Damascus under the rule of Bani Umayyah. There's all of these hadiths start emerging about the benefits of Damascus and the amazing features of Damascus. I showed how there was a problem with this greater narrative. So do watch my prelude. Watch why I'm saying this. I spoke briefly about witness testimony, about some of the research that has been done on forged false memories, how people actually believe several memories to be true, but they're wrong. Now, okay, so I, shortly after doing that prelude, I sent that to Sheikh Asrar. Okay. So I sent this to him so he had this, and he actually, to my understanding, watched my prelude. Why I feel this? Because he refers to certain things within his lecture that I spoke about in my prelude. So he speaks about the Dawkins debate, which I mentioned, how that made Muslims cringe. He speaks about a few other things, which I mentioned in my lecture. And at the end of his lecture, he actually speaks about the pre-debate. Now, right, my thoughts and about this whole, I watched it last night. It's just over an hour long. I have to say, people, first of all, I'm thankful to you, Sheikh Asrar, for taking your time out, for making that video. And the Hadith teaches us, and the Prophet taught us, Man lam yashkurin nas lam yashkurillah. Whoever is ungrateful to God. So I'm thankful. That said, now let's be honest. Now that we've done that, let's be honest. This was your challenge. Yeah. I am thoroughly disappointed. Disappointed isn't even the word. That was such an anti-climax. You know, for somebody who we chased for months on end, to come and who made this such a challenge. This is unquestionably established in Islam. The second coming of Jesus is by the Quran, Sunnah, reason. It's ma'lumun min ad-din bil-darura, which means it's as bright as day. It's as bright as day. Yeah, I couldn't see the light. I don't know what day this is as bright as. He never went through anything. He just went like, okay, so a summary. Most of what he brought in his 1 hour clip, I had already answered in my prelude. This is hilarious. And he's been through my prelude. He didn't go through any of the questions, generally, not expanding on them, and at least 2 of them he didn't even touch. the purpose of Jesus, why not another prophet? These things he didn't even touch, which he promised. He said to me in his text message, I will be going through I'll do, all these things, I'll mention the asanid. He didn't do any of this. I don't, like, yaar, ye drama kya hai yaar? Ye teja kya hai? Ye teja. What is all of this, yaar? Like, you banged on Facebook so loud that, for God's sake, does he dare sit in front of me and do this? This was your opportunity, and this is what you bring. And now he said, I won't be engaging if he said this to me in a text message again today. He said, if your thing is worthy, I will respond in writing. Is that so somebody else can write it for you? And then he said, oh, but we can still debate, but we can't talk with each other. He said this, like, we got to have, like, your minutes, my minutes. Yeah, I've given you your whole time to respond. Make a video, yeah. Bavar se lado. This whirlwind of a storm that you see, fight with it. Tund lehron se uljo. These waves that you see, entangle yourself in them. Kahan tak chaloge kinare kinare. How long are you going to stay safe and sound on the shore? What's happened, yaar? ¿Cuál es tu problema? What's going on? Who is the lion of Ahl Sunnah? Right? I don't see any of this. I seriously don't. There's a poem in Arabic that one of the scholars said about Al-Andalus, Muslim Spain. He said in Muslim Spain, because at one time there were so many kingdoms that you could walk on foot in one day and cover 3 different kingdoms. So these people used to have all these big titles like Mu'tamid, Al-Mu'tamid, Al-Allah, Al-Mu'tadid Billah, the one who relies, who is the reliance through Allah, the one who is strong by the might of Allah, the one who's... They copied the Abbasids from the East. They used to have these kind of grandiose titles. So he says, وَمِمَّا يُزَهِدُنِي فِي أَرْضِ أَنْدَلُسٍ. And that which keeps me away from the lands of Andalus, Muslim Spain. أَلْقَابُ مُعْتَضِدٍ فِيهَا وَمُعْتَمِدِ. These titles of Mu'tamid and Mu'tadid and all these grand titles. Says, أَلْقَابُ مَمْلَكَةٍ فِي غَيْرِ مَوْضِعِهَا. That royal titles where they do not belong. كَالْهِرَّةِ تَحْكِي انتفاخا صولة الأسد. Like a cat that kind of flares up and acts like a lion. Meow. Lion. Rastafari. This is lion. यार कोई lion नहीं नजर आ रहा है यार ये. Don't know. What is going on? Let's take a look at some of the things our esteemed Sheikh said within this hour. Some of the things. And I am going to give the Sheikh a chance because, as I did mention, I've got some preoccupations at the end of this month. So I'm hopeful within the next, I'll give him like these next, let's say 2 weeks or so. Hopefully, maybe he will do a detailed video to answer my issues. Inshallah, inshallah. But let's take a look at some of the things he said. Okay, he took a look at the verses. It was interesting. He mentions like these 3 verses in the Quran, all of which he himself concedes there's a different opinion to them. So I don't even see what the point of mentioning them was. He says, okay, there's a verse here which says, بَرْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ. But some people say that, it could mean this. Okay, it could mean that, but we don't go with that meaning. But you yourself accept it could mean that. It could mean that. And other people have said that. So he says, Allah says, بَرْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ, Allah took him up, raised him to him, so why to him? Well, why? Go to the beginning of these verses. Go to the beginning of these verses. What does Isa begin his kalam with? فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ, when Jesus felt that there was so much disbelief, قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي, he said, who are my helpers, my friends, my supporters? إِلَى اللَّهِ, مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. What's this ilah doing there then? The people said, oh, that ilah just means, yeah, it's just like an extra, it means like in the Allah. Well, it's the same ilah here. It's the same word. It's in the same context. So, and then the Ash'aris generally don't accept. Most Muslims don't believe Allah has a direction. So you couldn't say raised up to Allah being a direction. And then he concedes himself, look, you could take a different meaning from here. He mentions things like, he goes on about Jesus dying, not dying on the cross. Look, Muslims have never said Jesus died on the cross. Imam Malik ibn Abbas in Bukhari, Ibn Abbas in Sahih al-Bukhari says that Allah says Mutawafika means I'm giving you death. That Allah gave death to Jesus. The understanding of Ibn Abbas is that Allah gave death to Jesus naturally on earth. So he says, well, look, so if the Romans wanted to kill Jesus and the Jews, but they weren't able to, but they find him dead, so I suppose, they got their goal. Who said he died there and then? Who said that? He didn't have to die there and then. What? I don't understand what this is about. Just because he died a natural death doesn't mean Allah took him off the thing and then he just died. That would be pointless. Why would Allah save him from the crucifixion and then he just dies? Obviously he doesn't die there. Later on he died a natural death. And there's one question which he didn't raise. I was surprised, but other people did raise, and I think that's a good question. That where did Jesus go then? I think that's an interesting question. Truth is nobody knows. But then the truth is nobody knows where Jesus was before he was 30 years of age. So you see, Jesus comes to Jerusalem at the age of 30, close to 30. Prior to that, where was he? Even Christians don't know. Nobody knows where Jesus was. All these years, where did he grow up? And there's a very interesting, I found it interesting, obviously it's not compelling, there's an interesting BBC documentary on, it's got a provocative title called, Was Jesus a Buddhist Monk? And it's interesting that they speak of Buddhist records showing that there was a person who came from the East, the Middle East, and lived with them as a young boy, and his name was Isa. And how the monks kind of taught him, trained him, and things like this. It's interesting because the Buddhists also had a tradition with reincarnation, that they felt that their reincarnation is not like the Hindu reincarnation. So the Atma doesn't go into the other person, but it's almost like a pool table, like one ball hits another and triggers that. So they feel that the death of one person triggers the birth of another. So the Buddhists had this thing where they would look into the stars and they would have this kind of sign where they feel a great person has been born because somebody has died. Now they have in their records that they felt that there was a great birth in the Middle East. So certain people set off and traveled to find this birth, which kind of ties in with some of the Gospels and the three wise men or the three kings and things like this. It kind of ties in because the question always that Christians ask that who were these wise men, because they never appear again in the story. But it's interesting. I'd advise people to watch that documentary. It is interesting. I'm not saying that is what happened, but it's interesting. It's some research. But nevertheless, let's come back to what Sheikh Asrar was saying. So he mentions these verses and he says, well, these verses, I admit, can mean other things. So what's the point of mentioning them then? Because I said bring clear proofs from the Quran. Don't bring something and say it could mean this, but it could mean this. He says, oh, وَإِنَّهُ لَعِلْمٌ لِسَاعَةٍ, but it could mean Jesus, it could mean the Quran, it could mean this, it could mean this. So what's the point of mentioning this? Right? So, and then he kind of goes on about وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ. I've answered this extensively in my prelude. That look, what are you talking about? That verse that you're interpreting, that there are no people of the book except they will believe in Jesus before Jesus' death, before this at the second coming, makes no sense. Because look, that means most of Christians would have already died. Because they've been living from 2,000 years up until whenever Jesus comes. It's only the small batch that will see him. But the verse says there will be no. وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا. There will not be a single Christian and Jew except. So it clashes. Overwhelmingly clashes with what you're teaching. And plus, the reading that I said is supported by Ibn Abbas, by Mujahid, by Shahr ibn Hawshab, by Muhammad ibn Ali al-Hanafiya, the son of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, by Dhahak. It's even supported by the recitation of Ubay ibn Ka'b. I told you, look, I've given the answers to all of these. And then I was really disappointed with you know, the interesting thing is, by the way, during this video clip, Sheikh Asrar, may Allah bless him, he refuses to use my name now. Yaar, ye game kya hai, yaar? You know, for months on end, he's chasing. When he came to meet me, he was obsessed about what village my great-grandmother was from. You know, not even my grandparents, my great-grandparents. Oh, they're from this village. You're from Druni. You're from... Like, which I'm not, but okay. You know, one of my great-grandparents was from... The point is, like, you're so obsessed when you come to see me. Oh, what is your name? What is this? What is... You make all these posts about me, and now, Hazrat, naam lena bhi munasib nahi samajhte hain. Now he can't even mention my name. Hi. Yaar, ye bewafai, you know. What does Momin say? Jine aap jante the bawafa. You know, the person you understood to be loyal. Jine aap ginte the ashna. The person you thought you knew. Main wahi hu momine mubtala. Tumhe yaad ho ke na yaad ho. I am that person, yaar. Ye kya yaar, ye zalim. What are you doing? You know, sometimes you're obsessed with me. Now you refuse to even take my name. And some reformists have claimed, or maybe in that there's some extra, you know, what is it? Some love and devotion, huh? Otherwise, kya hai ye yaar? Ye kabhi akhiyan ladaye, kabhi akhiyan churaye. Kya ho raha hai? What's going on here, man? What's he doing? So, and then Sheikh Asrar, if you're watching this, by the way, Sheikh Asrar, if you're watching this, sir aankhon pe swagatam, aapka swagat karte hain yaar, swagat karte hain, right? If you're watching this, when he sat with me, he said, don't misquote me. Don't misquote. He corrected me on a word. On the word, I said something like, he said, does he have the... He said, no, I said, will he have? You have to correct every word, every word. But then in his video, when he wants to speak about the miracles of Jesus, he says, Allah explicitly speaks about Jesus speaking as in the cradle. Yeah, so in this, at about 28 minutes, I think about 50 seconds into it, he says, Allah explicitly says that Mary came carrying him and then put him in the cradle and then pointed at him and he spoke. Na munana. Show me in your Quran where it says she put him in the cradle. Ja, leke aa, meri jaan. Where does it say in the Quran she put him in the cradle? Where does it say that? You know, verbatim, yeah? Remember, your rule of even one word can't be misquoted. This is, acha, so your words can't be misquoted and the words of God can be misquoted. Put him in the cradle. What put him in? Kaun sa Quran hai, yaar? Ah, sounds so nice though, yaar. Ah, put him in the cradle. Ah. I mean, if it were permissible to update the Quran, I would have tried. Just for you, for my love to you, Sheikh. But no es posible, yaar. No es posible. But it does, but I give you that, it does sound nice. Put him in the cradle. Right, so, and then within 60 seconds, he misquotes, mistranslates again. He says, they said, كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ, how can we speak to somebody, مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ صَبِيًّا, how can we speak to somebody who, مَنْ كَانَ, who is, na. Kana was. This one not nice, my friend. This is why great mufassirin, yaar, Hanafi mufassirin, tumhare Hanafi mufassirin, like Alusi, the great scholar, he writes that this is past tense. They were referring to the past. Man kana fil mahdi sabiya. How can we speak to somebody who used to be, who was a boy in a cradle? What does he say? How can you say, who is? This one not nice, my friend. This one, don't do this one. So look, this is some of the kind of things that were just shocking to kind of see. And then all this going on, once again about kahal. Kahal is the graying of the hairs. The graying of the hairs. Grey. I don't know about the shades of grey. And how many shades it has, Sheikh Sahib. Hafizakallah. Allah aapko salamat rakhe. I don't know about the shades of grey. I don't really read up much on and watch stuff like that. Nah. I don't watch things like that. But I don't know about the graying. But what I do know is the great Ash'ari legend, Mufassir, Fakhruddin al-Razi, in his tafsir highlights, kahal can begin from 30 years of age. He says, we believe Jesus attained kahula. Kahula simply means kamil, fully developed. Like you're no longer developing as a young man, you are now fully developed. There's no fixed age. It doesn't mean when you hit 40, you suddenly become a fully developed man. This is a natural process. Some people become fully developed at 30. Some people mid-30s. Some people 40. So, Fakhruddin al-Razi says, we believe he was kahal when he was here on earth. This is the great Ash'ari Mufassir. And also I mentioned nobody used that as an evidence during the Salaf's time. Even Fakhruddin al-Razi and all these Mufassirin say that was a scholar by the name of Fadl ibn Hussein al-Bajali al-Nisapuri, who came at the end of the 200s, 280 something he dies, 282 I think. He was the first person to come up with that. Hundreds of years after the Prophet. Hundreds. But you know what? Nice try. गेम अच्छी खेले आप, बस आदमी गलत चुने. You played it well, you just chose the wrong adversary, that's all. So the point is that, look, and then I don't know why he was making links to Qadianis and stuff like that, but I don't want to say he was, because maybe he did that innocently, so I don't want to kind of just, you know, accuse him of making these allegations, because I'm sure Sheikh Asrar is more knowledgeable than that to say things like that. So, but he speaks about the Qadianis kind of use these verses. Look, my understanding completely destroys the Qadiani concept, because there is no Messiah. Okay, there is no Messiah. So how can Qadiani be a Messiah? It doesn't make any sense. The Qadiani thing is the first thing to fall flat. So look, and then, you know, some of the, he says, look, people are embarrassed by miracles, and how can, I'm just trying to see some of the notes. I mean, look, the thing is that it's a matter of perspective. It's not people are embarrassed, but people see how God operates in this world. And they don't want to understand religion as a mythology. They want to be real with it. So everybody accepts miracles as, what they disagree on is how they actually were. Did they have causes to them? Did they have, like, was it a phenomenon that fits within God's world? Why does it have to be something that goes against the laws of God? Why would God do that? It doesn't make sense to people. But if it had sources, asbab, reasons, causes within this world, it makes sense with God's laws. So I don't think that's necessarily an embarrassment. That's an understanding. Right, so these are the kind of things. He went on to Hadith. It's interesting, he once again mentioned about Mutawatir going on. And then it's interesting because he himself rejects the Mutawatir riwayat of the Shia. Right? He rejects that himself. Why not accept the Shia Mutawatir riwayat then? You know, and he says, anybody who says, oh, what about the Mutawatir? He talks about my claim, and he says, oh, that's just a stupid question. I'm not going to even answer that, because anybody with knowledge would never answer that. Why not? ¿Por qué? You know, ¿por qué, hermano? ¿Por qué? Why not? Answer it. Like, you accept all the mutawatir of anybody. He says, well, then I asked them, how would they prove that Abu Bakr was the Khalifa? Because it was historical. That Abu Bakr was the Khalifa. What do you mean? Nobody, even the Shia, historically recognized he was in control after the Prophet. How would they recognize Sayyidina Ali? It was a historical thing. But then he says, yeah, but how would you prove that he was rightly guided? What? Like, that's a value judgment. That's a value judgment. Look, he himself said that mutawatir can't be on opinions. Opinions, like what I think of somebody, can't be mutawatir. But then he's saying, how would you know that Ali was rightly guided? This is our opinion of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. We do believe he was rightly guided, but that's a value judgment. Like, I don't get what the point is of bringing this up. Like, what is the purpose? So I find these things really absurd, and once again I find them to be a diversion tactic to avoid the actual thing. He says there's all mutawatir hadith, refuses to include the ikhtilaf, the diversity. What did Ibn Hibban say? The great muhaddith who has his own collection of sahih. He says that all hadith are khabru ahad. Why not be honest with people? Teach people. Many people have said this, other people have opposed it. You see, this is what happens when you teach people everything is black and white, and somebody comes along and puts color in it. Everything then falls to pieces. Be honest from the get-go, and then there's no surprises. And he says, look, this thing about bring me the Christians that converted. Look, let me clarify something. Please watch my prelude again. I said that there were many complex issues taking place after the Prophet. Many complex issues. And hadith don't get documented till at least 100 years after the Prophet. So there's many intricate things going on. Politics is going on. Sieges, attacks on Muslims, physical attacks, the capital gets attacked, Muslims move their capital, huge civil wars take place, thousands and thousands of companions and tabi'een die. All this is happening within a few decades of the Prophet. The capital gets moved altogether to Damascus. I mentioned all these kind of things are happening. Many, which was under the Roman rule, many converts do embrace Islam. You've got to remember, people carry baggage. Even he mentions Abu Hurairah radiallahu an in Sahih Hadith. We have this transmitted that Abu Hurairah would learn from Ka'b al-Ahbar, who was a Jewish person, Jewish scholar, who embraced Islam after the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Salam, who was in the Prophet's time, became Muslim once again, a Jewish person. Abu Hurairah would learn from these people. That's on record. It's not something... In fact, there's a hadith that Abu Hurairah visited Mount Sinai, spent the whole day at Mount Sinai, and spent the whole day studying from Ka'b al-Ahbar and telling him, and he would tell him. Look, a lot was going on. There was huge... Islam had massively expanded. Islam, all these tragedies were taking place. Corruption had come in. So much wealth came into the Muslim world. A lot of enemies came in. Propaganda was going around. People were making up hadith non-stop. This is a fact. They were making up hadith. Nobody can deny that. They were making up hadith. And then you've got things like false memories. People alive at that time thought honestly that the world was going to end within a few decades. Anas radiallahu an, in a hadith that is in Sahih al-Bukhari, he transmits, and he lives up until 100 Hijri. Right? He lives up until 100 Hijri. He says, right, now check this out. He transmits that the Prophet pointed at a boy who was barely 10 years old and said, this boy will not reach old age except the world will have ended. Now, can you see these people really, like at the time all this is happening, wealth has come in, leadership, corruption, the capital of the Muslim is ransacked, it's kind of attacked, the head of state is murdered, like pious people left on the streets. You've got all this kind of Romans are entering Islam, all these people, Persians are entering Islam, people with hatred are attacking Islam, the grandson of the Prophet is murdered. All these things are happening right before Muslims. Right? You've got all of this stuff going on. People thought the world is going to end. It was a fertile mindset for the Messiah concept. So the Messiah concept was a perfect fit. That you think this is bad, yet there's going to be this kind of devil child that's going to come with one eye, and then this great showdown of good and evil will happen, and this whole, in fact, Jesus will come back, and then the world will end. It was, and I want to bring your attention to something. It's interesting that whenever this happens, that the Muslims get under so much attack, because later on, during Bani Umayyah's rule, later on, in the decades that followed, Muslims saw this so suddenly, becoming like a world power, money, power, connections, like influences, wealth, opulence, corruption, oppression, all this going on within their lifetimes. Think about this. Now, whenever suddenly things happen, notice that the Messiah concept comes back. Right now, sorry, somebody's saying about my belly. The belly's bouncy. Okay, right. So the thing is, look. Right now, notice all of these books to do with the Messiah, Mahdi coming back, that have been written in the last 300 years, maybe 400 years as a stretch. Like most of them written in the last 200 to 300 years. That is the books like by Humari, Katani, Shawkani, Anwar Shah Kashmiri, all of these collections, even going to Suyuti by stretching it, all these collections on the Mahdi will come back. They all came, they were mainly written under colonial rule or when the Muslims were heading downhill. Because at that time, people started to once again look around and think, why are we suffering? Like, there's no way out. They're losing hope. So all of a sudden, people start writing about the Messiah again. Is that a coincidence? Is it? So I'll leave that to you. So my message to Sheikh Asrar, I'll leave this for now, inshallah, is that, look, if you can kindly... he's asked me in my video to mention these 7 companions' narrations through them. Inshallah, I'll mention the narrations. I was hoping, I had said to him, can you read the chains? And I would correct them and show my perspective on them, but he chose not to do that. He's now said, look, he's going to respond only in writing. So look, I'm just disappointed because I thought, you know, all this hoo-ha, maza nahi aaya. You know, and it didn't live up to the hype. That's all I'm saying. You know, all this kind of like lion, all this, and then kya yaar, all this, and so I'm kind of disappointed. But nevertheless, maybe I'll still extend this if Sheikh Asrar watches this. Sheikh, Hafidakallah. If you can maybe in the next 2 weeks, if you can answer my questions, I'd highly appreciate it. You know, बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत धन्यवाद, Prabhu. If you can, please, I'd really appreciate it. I think more than me, you owe it to your followers and people who you created this hype about. If you can respond, tackle my narrative. Don't just tackle this hadithi thing. And don't do, please, as a request, Prabhu, as a request, don't do kind of sideline digs. Like, let's put that aside. Let's just tackle what we've got at hand. Okay. Tackle this issue. Don't kind of go off, you know, this is the problem with reformists. They say, oh, what about that hadith? Why they don't take the splitting of the moon? They don't... Stay focused. Focus. Hey, stay with me, huh? Look into my eyes. Right, so stay focused, Sheikh. Stay focused. Look, the thing is, tackle my narrative, please. What I will then do is, I mean, as I mentioned, I did have at the end of this month some preoccupations. As soon as that's over, I will then do a detailed video. Hopefully, I will incorporate whatever I can from what you have said, from what other shuyukh have said, all these other people who tried to say this is kufr, kafir for believing this, others who've said this doesn't make any sense because of whatever evidence is, Sheikh Salek bin Siddna, other people who, by the way, Sheikh Salek bin Siddna, I've responded to him. It's on YouTube from my last week's session. And it's interesting now, the comments, the feedback from other scholars in California was they were saying, well, oh, he made a mistake. They said that he made a mistake about saying that when Jesus comes, there will be no more taklif, liability. That was a mistake. They go, you know, tasamuh. He kind of like slipped up. It was just it's an innocent trip up. I was like, cha. Don't extend this innocence my way. You know, when I do it, it's only inspired by the devil. You know, when these mashayikh do it, what's that thing? Gali huzur ki to lage duaon jaisi. You know, when huzur swears, it sounds like a dua. Allah. Gali huzur ki to lage duaon jaisi. That's the... But when I do something, there's but so coming to this, so that's my message to all these mashayikh, especially primarily Shaykh Asrar. And these mashayikh, by the way, I generally, Shaykh Asrar made a point, and this is, I'm saying this from my heart. Look, I'm being genuine. He said that, you know, I said, he refused to use my name now. Now we're on this no-name basis. Hi, yaar, I'm confused. Confundido. Estoy confundido. I'm a bit confused, yaar, ke is rishte ko kya naam dein? What name shall we give this relationship that we've got? I'm confused, yaar. I stay pondering, looking into the stars. What can I call this relationship? So the thing is, now we're on a no-name basis. He doesn't like to use my name. I'll still use his name, Sheikh Asrar Sahib. Hafidahullah, may Allah protect him and bless him. He made a point at the end. He said that, look, this person now, not Mufti Abu Layth, this person, he said that he wasn't offended at the end of the thing, and now, you know, why is he acting like this? I'm being genuine when I say this. I genuinely, in my heart, for none of you, harbor any hatred. Honestly, wallahi, from my heart, I don't. Yes, why am I spotting your mistakes out like this and stuff like this? Because you began like this. And I'm being honest, like, I actually do think that your tactics are these kind of typical, and I know you don't like this, but typical Brilvi tactics. But you don't like being called a Brilvi. I understand that. I appreciate that. But then, hey, you can call me a modernist, which I say I'm not a modernist. But we're just being honest. This isn't like tit for tat. These are textbook Brilvi kind of typical tactics. You know, like, I think these kind of tactics that you played, making polls, taking digs, even when you came to see me, trying to get me to apologize, doing all of this, then making this talk, going away, not even addressing my issues. It just goes to show that it was all, as you said, it was all drama. So, hence, I feel that, yes, I will spot your mistakes. I will still say to you, do this. But wallahi, I have no hatred in my heart against you. There's very few people in this world that I actually ever have hatred for. I try to always keep like a clean heart. So, yes, I may not like certain people, but I don't hate them. And I'm being honest, and that's the same thing for all these other mashayikh. I definitely don't hate them. Maybe disappointed with some. I'm being honest, I may be disappointed, but I don't have hatred. And I'm being honest, like, I would host them, I would accommodate these people, I would pay out of my pocket for, you know, to kind of like serve these people. I would do that still even now. I actually I sent a message via some mutual people to Sheikh Dr. Shadee Elmasry, who called me a probable kafir, or a probable apostate for rejecting the second coming of Jesus. And I said to him that in that message, I said that, look, I'd like to have a polite dialogue with you. So it's an exchange dialogue, and you can record it, we can record it. It doesn't need to be live. We can have a mediator, if you like, a mutual person. And we can just have a discussion, but it's got to be a discussion. I'd like to discuss it because you're calling me a probable kafir. Don't you think you owe that much to me? And then I said to him, because I heard he may be coming to Birmingham this year, I offered, wallahi, I said to him in that message, I sent it as a recorded message, like a voice kind of message. I said that I have no ill feelings towards you. Yes, I am disappointed, but I've heard, by the way, that you're coming to Birmingham. I would like to host you, as in, maybe not, I know you're not interested in talks and stuff, but your accommodation at my expense. I would like to pay for all whilst you're here, you know, your food and everything, and that includes your family. And I will see to it that you get adequate transportation and everything, somebody to drive you around. I will do all of that whilst you're in Birmingham. So I extended that to him, offer that still stands for him and his family. And that's, you know, because I don't have any, seriously, I don't have ill feelings towards these people. I'm disappointed. That's different. That why would you call me a kafir and stuff like that? Wouldn't you rather talk to me? But anyway, so the same goes for these colors. Cool. So with that, our message on this discussion ends. Okay, so I'll take the other question. Moving on to the question about Stephen Hawking's. I'm still kind of recovering with this. Damn. You see, sometimes I bring too much to drink and it just stays here, and then sometimes I bring too little. Why is life like that, huh? Between extremes. Why is my life like that? It's either always crazy or it's... There's nothing kind of systematic about it. Right, so this Stephen Hawking's thing, people. So those of you that know... right, so this Stephen Hawking's thing is... So Stephen Hawking's passed away, and I made a post, and if other Muslims did, where they said something like a nice word, like rest in peace, or they said something like I said, may Allah have mercy on him. So, okay. Right, so now, sorry, I was just trying to read some questions there. Now, people really, threw a fit and said, oh my God, this kafir dies and people are making dua for him. He was an atheist and he didn't even believe in God. First of all, let's clarify this question. I'm not saying that who's going to go to heaven. Nobody can say that. My belief and that of the majority of Muslims, Fakhruddin al-Razi states in, and you'll find this in the Ash'ari books, you'll find this in most Muslim books, that Allah can send anybody to heaven, He can send anybody to hell, He can reward anybody, He can punish anybody. Be them a kafir, be them a Muslim, He can do that with anybody. That is Allah's qudra. He has that power. Nobody disputes that. And I never said, Allah, you better do this or you have to do this. And I never said in my dua, oh, I hope Allah gives him an elevated maqam in Jannah or something like this. I never said that. I said that may Allah have mercy on him. Asking for mercy, this mas'ala of what they call at-tarahum in Arabic, seeking rahmah. Okay, at-tarahum ala al-kuffar. Seeking, or ala ghayr al-muslimin, seeking rahmah on non-Muslims. Is this problematic? And many people jump to this, is you can't do this, you can't, because in the Quran there's this verse and there's this, and they quote the verse of the Quran that وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ, that and Ibrahim did not seek forgiveness for his father except for a set period which he promised. And then they use, and more so they use the verse of the Quran that وَمَا كَانَ لِنَبِيٍّ وَمَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ. It's not befitting for Allah and the people who, it's not befitting for Allah's messenger, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who believe to seek forgiveness for the mushrikeen مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ, after it becomes evident and manifest and clear, tabayyin lahum annahum min ashab al-jahim, that they are from the people of the hellfire. Now, people were using these verses to say that you cannot seek forgiveness or you cannot seek mercy for people like Stephen Hawking. Now, this is not true. Because look, yes, I accept that can be an interpretation. I accept that's an interpretation. I accept the interpretation. I believe it to be wrong. I believe it to be inaccurate. You ask me why. We know from the Quran that yes, the father, Allah uses the word father of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now some people say it wasn't his father, but Allah uses the word father. That his father disbelieved and opposed him and was a staunch kind of opposition during his time. Now in this surah, Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ إِسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَن مَوْعِدَةٍ. He only did this for a promised time. He sought forgiveness for him. That's it. Was this during his lifetime of the father or after his death? Now I would argue, and I'll show you in a moment from the Quran, that that was during his father's lifetime. Why do I believe this? Because the priority of the prophets was to prioritize their da'wah. They were not to kind of get sidetracked in just seeking forgiveness for people who were opposing their da'wah, especially key figures who were then tormenting the followers. Because that confuses and compromises the da'wah. You see, it's different. Like let's say in the Prophet's time, Abu Jahl. He's one of the key figures who is standing and opposing the Prophet. But whilst opposing the Prophet, he's also punishing Muslims. These weak and poor Muslims, he's having them tortured. He's encouraging that people should kind of torment them. For the Prophet to now focus, on Abu Jahl and start making dua for him, would compromise the message of Islam with its believers, just as it would for Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right, those of you just tuning in, if you can click share, I'd like you to share this. We're discussing the Stephen Hawking's thing about Iman. Right, now people, I'm going to take you to the Quran. People mention Ibrahim alayhi salam. I think that's beautiful that they've mentioned Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why? Because Ibrahim is the perfect example, alayhi salam. Right, guys, those of you just tuning in, if you can click like and click share. Right, now let's go to Surah Ibrahim. The Surah Ibrahim. In Surah Ibrahim, which is dedicated to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and it speaks about many things, but in there, Ibrahim making dua. Okay, Ibrahim says, alayhi salam, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ. And when Ibrahim said, and this is later on in his age, when he's an old man now. Look, he's moved to Mecca. This is much later. He's moved to Mecca. He's re-established the Kaaba with his children. And he says, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا. Oh Allah, make this land, Mecca, a safe haven. وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. And save me and say, right guys, if you can stay focused, please do not digress in the comments, otherwise you will get blocked. Those of you just tuning in, if you can click share, get this out there. We're discussing the Stephen Hawking's issue and saying and seeking mercy for non-Muslims. Is that permissible or not? He says, oh Allah, and protect me and my offspring that we should worship idols. Rabbi innahunna adlalna kathiran min an-nas. Oh Allah, they have misled many a people. فَمَنْ تَبِعَنِي فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي. Whosoever follows me, then he is from amongst me. وَمَنْ عَصَانِي فَإِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Whosoever disobeys me, and look what he goes to. Whosoever disobeys this da'wah, إِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. You are most forgiving, most merciful. Let's not stop here. People will say, yeah, but that's only during their lifetime. He never said that. Quran never said that. But let's read on. He says, رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. He speaks here about Allah. I've settled my offspring here. You know, make people's hearts kind of come towards this city, Mecca. And he makes dua for that. Then he says that you know, Allah, what we hide and what we express. Alhamdulillah alladhi wahaba li ala al-kibri Ismail wa Ishaq. Inna rabbi la sami'u du'a. All praise be to Allah who gave me. Now listen, this is old age. How do we know it's old age? Listen to his dua. Alhamdulillah alladhi wahaba. All praise be to Allah who granted me Ismail and Ishaq at this old age. He's saying that. Indeed, Allah responds to the du'as. Rabbi ja'alni muqimus salah wa min dhurriyati. Oh Allah, make me somebody who establishes the prayer and my offspring. Rabbana wa taqabbal du'a. Rabbana ghfirli. Oh Allah, forgive me. Wali walidayya. And my parents. He's making this dua. It's in the Quran. In his old age. وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. And for the believers on the day that the judgment shall be established. He is saying, رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ. People say, oh, he must have said that when he was young. The verse before it says, Alhamdulillah alladhi wahaba li Ismaila wa Ishaq al-kibar. That oh, praise be, wahabani al-kibar, who gave me despite my old age Ismail and Ishaq. Inna rabbi la sami'ud du'a. Indeed, my Lord hears the praise. Rabbi ja'alni muqimus salah. Make me and my offspring. He goes to his offspring and then his parents. His parents had died a long time ago. This is the Quran I show you. I'm not making this up. This is the Quran. Fakhruddin al-Razi, when doing a commentary on that, mentions as the first point, he gives three interpretations. He says, oh, there's an ishkaliya, there's a problem because wasn't his father a kafir? He says, well, there's three responses. The first response, he says, because maybe it's Ibrahim alayhi salam then understands that's not haram then. You can do that. You can do that, he says. I'm not making this stuff up. And then he gives other interpretations. Oh, they say maybe he was making dua for Adam and Eve. Come on, look, guys. And then other mufassirin say he was making dua for Adam and Eve. Adam was a prophet. We need to get off this thing of Adam being sinful, Adam being sinful. Why do we keep thinking Adam was sinful? Adam was a prophet, for God's sake. He was a prophet of God. You know, like, we don't need to keep making dua for Adam alayhi salam. He was a prophet of God. So, you know, we don't have this first original sin concept from Christianity. Now, these are, I've shown you clear proofs. This is from the Quran, people. And people say, oh, what about Abu Talib? Abu Talib. Yes, you know, about Abu Talib, radiallahu anh, if you want to accept that he was a Muslim, I personally, in my understanding, feel that, like, I feel it isn't convincing that he died a non-Muslim. Right? If you look at the hadith that they bring in Bukhari, they bring 3 hadith about Abu Talib passing away as a non-Muslim. All Muslims agree that Abu Talib was the source of strength for our Prophet. That whilst he was alive, Islam was protected. With his death, the Prophet was deeply troubled because the Muslims became vulnerable and they were attacked. Now, look, I accept that most Muslims, most Sunni Muslims generally accept that he wasn't a Muslim, but I feel that that is debatable. Why? Because look, when you look at the hadith that they bring these hadiths saying that, look, oh, there's a verse of the Quran, they say things like, that there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim by Abu Hurairah that إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, you cannot guide who love. Allah says this, and Abu Hurairah says this was revealed about Abu Talib. But that's problematic. First of all, the chain has a problematic rawi in there, Yazid ibn Kaysan. But put that aside, Abu Hurairah wasn't even a Muslim when the incident of Abu Talib happened and this verse was revealed. So it doesn't even make any sense. So he's obviously telling this from somebody else. So, and then there's another hadith that, and this happens, by the way. You know, these asbab, they bring these verses and they say, you know, asbabun nuzul, the reasons for revelation. But the reasons for revelation are highly disputed. Look, I'll give you one in Bukhari. There's a hadith in Bukhari that from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, shahida shahidun min ahliha, that a witness testified from her family. Now, in Bukhari, they say this was to do with Abdullah ibn Salam, who was a Jewish person, became Muslim. That's in Sahih Bukhari. Sha'bi rejected that so harshly. And he said that how can that be? He became a Muslim in Medina. This verse was revealed in Mecca. And he said that this riwayah of Abd ibn Humayd, who by the way is one of the people who transmits Jesus' second coming, he says that this is unacceptable because this person became a Muslim in Medina. This verse was already revealed in Mecca. Now, my point of saying this is that, look, even the hadith in Sahih Muslim, in Sahihain, show, there's a hadith in Sahihain, in Bukhari and Muslim, that the Prophet said, لَعَلَّهُ تَنْفَعُ شَفَاعَتِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, that maybe my intercession will help him on the Day of Judgment, so his punishment is lessened. It becomes less. That's in Sahih Muslim, it's in Sahih Bukhari. But when you look at the Quran, Allah says, لَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُم مِّنْ عَذَابِهَا, that the adhab cannot be lessened, that it can't be reduced. وَلَا يَفْتُرُ عَنْهُم, it does not be reduced for them. And in another hadith, لَا تَنْفَعُهُم, the kuffar, لَا تَنْفَعُهُم شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ, that people who intercede for kuffar, it will not be accepted. Now you're saying that Abu Talib's punishment is reduced because the Prophet interceded. Well, that shows then it worked. Now all I'm saying is, look, whether a person wants to believe that Abu Talib was a Muslim or not a Muslim, it's up to them. I'm not saying that people have to believe this or have to believe that. I'm not, forcefully kind of pushing this. I myself am not convinced that he was not a Muslim. Like, I think he most likely was, because why would he so passionately spend his life defending the Prophet and you could say because he's a relative, but he defended Islam to that extent that it had so much strength. And his famous poem, even the Prophet would have it recited, but I mean, his kind of support for Islam. So I'm inclined towards the understanding that I think he did have faith, and I think his last words when he said, I die upon the understanding of Abdul Muttalib, is because Abdul Muttalib was from the people of Fitra. Abdul Muttalib is not from the people of Hellfire. I think that, look, but this more importantly, if people want to, they can believe what they want. I'm not imposing my understanding on anybody, but what I would say is that, look, let's stop obsessing with heaven and hell for other people. Judgment is for Allah. Judgment is for Allah. Okay. We need to kind of chill out with this. Oh, and asking for mercy for somebody doesn't mean God has to grant it. It's up to God. May Allah have mercy. Allah might not. We all, everybody, the creatures, ants, anything, animals, we all belong to God. What, Allah can't have mercy on us? Allah can't have mercy on us if we're alive? Why not if we're dead? People say, yeah, but Stephen Hawking never accepted God. Of course he didn't. Let's be honest. Wallahi, let's be honest for a moment. We would not accept Islam if we were not born Muslim. Let's be honest. Like, if I wasn't born Muslim, if I wasn't born in a Muslim family, that's what I mean by being born Muslim, in a Muslim family and brought up as a Muslim, would you really accept Islam? I had this awesome conversation the other day with Dr. Imran from Birmingham Metroflex Gym, and it was this discussion on, look how Muslims behave. Like, let's say it's Jummah, they block all the roads. Like, let's be honest, if you were a white person growing up in this country who was not privileged, you would probably be part of the EDL. You'd probably be Islamophobic and racist, because you think, look, every time I try to drive past, when it's Friday, they block the roads. What use is that Jummah if you're going to cause inconvenience to people? Like, my point, I'm not trying to attack a single point of Jummah. I'm trying to say, let's be honest. We seem to have this kind of Baptist culture that just because we've said La ilaha illallah, we're God's saved children. We can do whatever the hell we want. Muslims have got huge problems in this country. We run a huge part of the drug industry in this country, in the UK. Muslims, they run huge parts of the kind of sex gang grooming kind of things. They are heavily involved in whatever, usually recently, in recent times, acts of terrorism and stuff like that. They have a huge crime rate. Massively kind of unjust amongst ourselves. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, we do massive tax evasion, we do massive claim benefits, we steal, we're massively unethical. Look, I'm not saying I'm so ethical, I'm an angel. I'm just being honest for a moment. right? We're all about, you know, just living that life, and Muslims, we're a small proportion, yet we make a huge proportion within prisons, disproportionately. Muslims. Now, the question is, why would you be Muslim? It hasn't, you know, like we've got this kind of Baptist culture, like you baptize a child, now he's saved. It doesn't matter, he's definitely going to heaven now because they baptized him as a child. Oh, he said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He's definitely going to heaven. This kafir who helped humanity, did all of these things, he's definitely going to hell. And I think another reason we do this is to make ourselves feel better. Right, guys, I think I'm running out of battery, so I'm going to have to kind of call this to an end. The reason we do this is to make ourselves feel better because we think that it's not fair. Other Muslims who are practicing think, why did I have to quit doing all of this, and this non-Muslim got to chill out, go around, have all these sexual liaisons, or do this, or drink alcohol, or chill, and he gets to go to heaven. I never got to do that. You know, and it's not fair. Well, guess what? Right? You haven't been shortchanged. You'll still get your reward. Why are you angry for other people if Allah is merciful to them? You know, why? لِمَا تُضَيِّقُ وَاسِعًا, as the Prophet said, why do you hold short something that is so large? And this, by the way, what I've said is the fatwa of Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya. If you go to their website, the great Dar al-Ifta of Egypt, and it is Sheikh Ali al-Jifri is on YouTube. You can go there, sharing a platform with Osama Sayyid. And these are grand kind of scholars and muftis within Egypt today and the world. They are saying the same thing. You can say, may Allah have mercy on them. As an you don't pray their janazah, of course, they weren't Muslim, but you can say that. It's up to Allah if He chooses to do that. People, with that, I'm going to have to call this to an end. Do stay in touch. Like my page. Send me any messages. I will try to respond. Inshallah, till next week, take very good care of yourselves, people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.